Gospel and turn to page 15. Page 15. y'all want to turn to, it's in page 40 in this book, if y'all want to turn to it.
Anybody, all hearts and minds clear, because it's God's time this morning. So anybody has anything before we get started, please don't hold back on God this morning. But I just thank the Lord for confirmation. You know, I was sitting there, I've been battling this all week. I've had a difficult week. And it just seemed like God was just silent to me all week. I just had no inkling of an idea of what to preach this week. And God just hit me Thursday with all this stuff and everything. And and there's some ideas, and you'll see later on what I'm talking about. I don't do things normal a lot of times. And you can ask any of the youth that. But I was thinking about that this week, and like, Lord, do you really want me to do this? And he's like, yes, I want you to do it. And I was just looking for a confirmation there. And both songs that all the songs, but both drama songs had a theme in there. The first one was talking about I'll stand. And then the next one says, I surrender. And that's going to be a big theme is the letter I this morning. And that wasn't by no coincidence that y'all did those songs. It didn't say we surrender or we will stand, which those are true, but it was I. It's a personal thing. And that's what I'm going to kind of preach on this morning. But if you have your Bibles and if you can stand this morning, we'll start out right here in John chapter 13, verse 34. I'll give y'all a second to get there this morning. I just want to thank y'all again for another opportunity to preach here this morning. And I don't take this lightly, and I pray that you get something this morning from this. But John chapter 13, verse 34, it says, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another, as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have love one to another. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whither goest thou? Jesus answered him, whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterwards. Peter said unto him, Lord, why can't I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake. Jesus answered him, Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice. You may be seated. Dear Lord, I just thank you again for this opportunity, Lord, to preach your word this morning. I pray, God, that you will speak through me and that I will remove myself out of the way. And I pray, God, that you will say what you'd have to say this morning, God. And I pray that that all hearts will be just attentive and all ears will be open to what you have to say to them this morning. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. So we see here Peter was one that loved to open his mouth at a lot of times, good and bad. And if you've read anything about Peter, Peter did a lot of amazing things. He walked on water, but he also later sunk. He was the first one to say, Lord, you are the Christ. You are who you say you are. He was one of the first disciples to admit that publicly. So he did that. So he did a lot of awesome things. But Peter also opened his mouth at some pretty tough times. We know the Mount of Transfiguration. We've got Elijah. We've got Moses. We've got God and Jesus, all them present. And then Peter wants to speak. If I'm in the presence of all those men of God, I'm going to hush and listen to what they have to say. But Peter just had to open his mouth like, we can make, some places for y'all to dwell here this morning. We can do this, we can do that. It's good that I'm here, all this stuff. And God was like, listen to my son. So basically, in a nice way, God was saying, shut up, Peter, and listen to what they got to say. So Peter, his heart was in the right place a lot of times, but his mouth just got a little bit more than, he said more than he needed to at times. We'll just put it that way. So this right here, Peter his intentions were good. He said, where are you going, God? I'm going with you. I'll die with you. I'll never deny you. I'll never forsake you. I'm going to be right there with you. And so those are big words, and they sound good, and he had all good intentions. But we'll find out here in a minute that that's not the case. And, God told him, Jesus told him right here, says, when the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And he was probably thinking, no, not me. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to preach this morning on a thought. And if any of y'all are English teachers or know English, you know where you'll get this probably. But I'm going to preach the thought, I before we, or no revival you will see. So we got a revival coming up next month. And, Brother Brian has mentioned several times, we think of revival as just, we got to come to church every night that week. That's what revival is. That's part of it. But revival has to start with us. And it's got to start with the I within us. So right now, Peter, he's got the I within him. He's talking these big words. I will lay down my life for your sake. I will do this. But the I is smack dab in the middle of pride. And if you look at the letter I is right in the middle of pride. And that's exactly where his I is right here. The I within him is pride at this moment. So he has good intentions, but he's not executing what he's saying. And he says all these words. We do that a lot of times. How many times do we get prideful in ourselves? Like, God, I'll never deny you. I'll never, not do this for you. I'm going to be there with you to the end. And we have good intentions, but we don't always follow through. So this week, I just want to say I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And this week we went and saw a movie this week. And I went and saw that Average Joe. It's a Christian football movie that came out and stuff about the one who prayed on the 50-yard line. And so I went there, and my movie got out before theirs did. Samantha and Ariel went. So I had 20 minutes to wait on them. Well, I'm in this room. They've already closed it to the public. It's once the movies exit, you leave. So I'm out there, and there's a woman and her son in there. And I let, God told me, you need to speak to her. You need to talk with her. But I let 2024 and all these things get in my way. It's like she's a woman with a child. I'm probably going to scare her or something. I don't want to freak her out. Like I'm trying to be weird, so I'm going to stay over here by myself. And I did. I stayed as far away from her as I could for those 15, 20 minutes. Probably made it more awkward. And I got to thinking, and God was like, you need to speak to her. And I'm like, no, I don't want, it may spook her, this and that. So I thought about that. So then she left. And as soon as she walked out that door, I'm thinking, I blew that opportunity. I was supposed to talk to her. I don't know what was going on in her life. But I knew I was supposed to talk to her, but I blew it. So then God just had to further, give me that whipping from that. So they done left, and so the little boy comes up to the door, and he's trying to open the door, and it's locked because they don't went out. So I opened the door, and she said he wanted to play a game and stuff. So I opened the door, and so here he comes in with the door locked behind him. She trusts me enough to be in there with her son, but I thought it would be the other way. So God would just tell me, like, that's how much she trusted you, and you should have talked with her. She needed to, and then it just was further that I messed up that opportunity. So there's several times God tells us to do several things, but we'll let, pride, fear, whatever it is, and we won't do it. And I know I missed an opportunity. So now we'll see what Peter does with his opportunity. Here, we'll flip just a few pages to John chapter 18 and verse 15. It says, "And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. That disciple was known unto the high priest." So what we see here is this is John. John refers to himself all the time as the disciple whom Jesus loved. This disciple. He never mentioned his name, but he's always talking about himself. So he says here, and it says, this disciple was known unto the high priest. So John wanted us to know he was known to the high priest. And it says, "And they went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest." It says, "But Peter stood at the door without." So that means Peter stayed outside. John went in. He was right there with Jesus. He was right in there with the priest. But Peter was outside. And what happens and he knows what's happening. He's about to make this mistake and stuff, and we isolate ourselves a lot of times. And so that's what happens here. And it says, "But Peter stood at the door without, then went out that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spake unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. Then saith the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, Art not thou also one of this man's disciples? He saith, I am not. And the servants and officers stood there, who made a fire of coals, for it was cold." And I want you to look at that thought, fire of coals, and remember that, because we'll get to that. We'll come back to that in just a minute. It says, "And they warmed themselves, and Peter stood with them and warmed himself." So we skip over to verse 25, and it says, "And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself, and they said therefore unto him, Art not thou also one of his disciples? He denied it and said, I am not." So this is the second denial. Then verse 26, one of the servants of the high priest, being his kinsman, whose ear Peter cut off, saith, "Did I not see thee in the garden with him?" And Peter then denied again, and immediately the cock crew. So we see this, but we look back, I believe it's in Matthew, where it says that Peter cursed and he was adamant. "I do not know this man. I don't know nothing about him." But another detail I want, because it mentions here, I didn't catch this still, and y'all may have known this, but it talks about that the one that Peter cut his ear off was the one that came up to him and said, "Were you not with him? I saw you there." So we look back and we all know the story that Peter, again, true Peter fashion, is like, "You're not taking Jesus." And he took out a sword and he swung at what we learned his name was Malchus. And he swung at him and he cut his ear off. Jesus, put his ear back on. But I caught this and I just thought this was interesting. It doesn't say it here in John, but I believe it's in Matthew. When Malchus responded to him, he said, your speech deceives you. So I thought about that, and I've read that several times, just blew past that. I'm like, okay, his speech deceived him. But how did he know his speech deceived him? His ear was cut off. And that just shows when God restores things, it's back. He could hear. It wasn't that he didn't have hearing problems. His ear was it wasn't that it was just halfway on. He heard him speak and said, "I heard you speak in the garden." And stuff like that. And I got to think about that. That just shows that God, even to the enemies here, God restored. He didn't just put his ear on just for show, and he was deaf the rest of his life. He heard out of that ear still, because he heard enough to know that's the voice I heard in the garden right there. And so when God restores things, he restores things. And we're going to see exactly some more of what he restores. So we go over to John chapter 21. But right here in chapter 18, though, we talked about pride the first time. Well, right now, the I within Peter is right in the middle of denial. That's where his I is right now, because he's denied the Lord. And so he's out there by himself, and he isolates himself from everybody, and he ended up denying God. So how many times do when we mess up, we don't want to be around other people. We want to isolate ourselves. We want to live in that guilt, and we let God down so many times about that. And there's so many things that he has for us to do. And we will sit there and live in our guilt and in our shame and things like that. So we're going to flip over to John 21. And we're going to see where this ends up. So I'm so thankful this is not where the story ended for Peter. He didn't go through this denial and that was it. And God was done with Peter. He denied the Lord and that was it. That's not how God works. So here in chapter 21, it says, "After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias." And again, this is another name for Galilee. And the Sea of Galilee, if you know anything about Peter, that's where Jesus called Peter in the first place. To be fishers of men was the Sea of Galilee. So this is the same place. So this is going to be a theme through this, is he's going to get a chance to redo a lot of what he's done. And I'm so thankful that God gives us second chances and third chances, fourth chances, and to me, thousands of chances. And so here in verse 2, it says, there went together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana and Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other of his disciples. Simon Peter saith unto him, I go a fishing. They say unto him, we also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. So Peter was done. He knew that he had messed up. He was living in shame. He was living in isolation. And he said, I'm going back to what I know. I'm going back fishing. That's what I did before. God's done with me. I messed up so big. I'm just going to go to what I was before. And if you notice, he didn't go alone. That it's at least six other disciples it mentions here followed him. So there's a lot to be said about that. Also, when we mess up, we can bring other people into it. So they're like, well, if you're done with this, I'm done with this. But some of them, I believe John and a few others did it. They didn't want Peter to go back to that. They were there to help him. It can go both ways. So we can bring others into our sin. We may think it's just us. But when we mess up and when we walk away from the faith, we walk away from the Lord, our families can walk away. If you quit coming to church on Sunday, who's going to follow with you? Your family. Most of the time, they're going to follow, well, Dad's not going to church. Well, I'm not going to church either. Oh, well, Mom's not going to church, so I don't want to go either. And that's what can happen. That's exactly what happened here. They're going to go like, well, if you're done, I'm done too. We're just going to go back fishing, what we did before. So, and they caught nothing. This has happened before. So in verse 4, it says, but when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. And I want you to catch that this is morning time. When Peter did all these denying, this was in the middle of the night into early morning when he denied the Lord. So this is important time in here. And it says in verse 5, then Jesus saith unto them, children, have you any meat? They answered him, no. And he said unto them, cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. So again, I imagine this, and he says little children. And this is kind of if it wasn't Jesus, this would almost be a tough term to take, almost like making fun of them, kids. But this was something that he was saying he was being nice. And they knew when he said children, he was doing it in a nice way. But this would have been anybody to say, hey, children, y'all catch anything? This would have been a tough term. This would have been fight words almost to these men who have, you think they've been all night wrestling all these conditions and nothing. But this was all part of God's plan. And so when he said, do y'all have anything? So he tells them, well, cast it on the other side. And if this was me, I'm probably going to be a little bit angry about this. I'm like, don't you think we've tried that all night? We've tried every angle. We've tried back, front, left, right. No telling what they tried. And then they're like, this man just comes out and says, well, why don't you cast it on that other side? And they're thinking like, well, no, duh. Like we've tried that several times. But they said, okay, we're going to do it. And it says, therefore the disciple whom Jesus loveth saith unto Peter, it is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and then cast himself into the sea. Peter didn't waste any time. He knew this was his opportunity. He knew where he messed up the last time, and he saw that Jesus was there. He was going to make things right. And so he didn't even care about the fish. He didn't even care about the catch at that point. The nets are filled to the brim. He didn't care nothing about that. He wanted to get to Jesus. And it said, verse 8, and the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. As soon then as they were come to the land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon and bread. So there's that again, that fire of coals. It's only mentioned this way in these two parts right here. There's coals mentioned, there's fire mentioned several times. But a fire of coals is only mentioned right here in John in these two instances. So I want you to realize that it's early morning, and here's a fire of coals. What happened the last time? It was early morning, and Peter was around a fire of coals. He denied the Lord 3 times because he was isolated. But he was with the Lord this time, and that's a big difference. And he had the disciples around him. So he gets a chance to redo what had happened. So right here, God's rekindling his flame. He's telling him, come eat with me. And he doesn't lead in with like, Peter, I can't believe you did this. He didn't lean in with none of that. He just said, come eat with me. And so verse 10, it says, Jesus saith unto them, bring of the fish which ye have now caught. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes, 153. And there's probably some smarter people. I've tried finding the significance of this. I believe there's no mistake in the Bible. God put 153 for a reason. It may just be just to show you this happen, just a literal number. Some people say there was 153 species of fish new at that time, and he was signifying that they were going to catch all fish. All that could be. There's many theories to it, but there's a reason there's 153 in here. Whether it's just to tell us exactly how many, I don't know. But that's something you go down a rabbit hole and dig into later. Maybe you can find something on that. But I just thought it was neat that it's mentioned, and that's a lot of fish. Verse 12, it says, Jesus saith unto them, Come and dine. And none of the disciples durst ask him, Who art thou? Knowing that it was the Lord. Jesus then cometh and taketh bread and giveth them and fish likewise. This is now the third time that Jesus showed himself to his disciples after that he's risen from the dead. So there's that number 3 again. This is the third time he's appeared to them. So then this is when it gets to the meat of it right here in verse 15. It says, So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou more than these? And he says Simon, if you notice that too. He changed his name to Peter before, but he's calling him Simon. He's going back to when he first called him. And he's going back to his old name. And then he calls him son of Jonas. And he referenced that when he first called him the first time. But when he's saying, see, our English language is so limited that we see this as just, do you love me? Yes, I love you. We just see it as love, just a generic love word. But that's not what this is right here. What Jesus is saying is, do you agape me? Do you surrender all to me? Do you love me with everything that you have? That's what he's saying here. And he says, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. So we see, well, he answered. He answered with phileo. He answered with I care deeply about you. I love, almost like a brotherly love. That's where we get Philadelphia from, the city of brotherly love. That's what he's responding at. So he's saying, Lord, you know I love you. You're my best friend. I'm there for you. But he's wanting complete surrender out of him. But that's not how he's answering. So he said, He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. Verse 16, it says, He saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Again, with agape. He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my sheep. So again, he answers with phileo. And he changed it to sheep. And so what he's saying is he wants him to not only speak the gospel to people, but he's wanting them to grow. And he's wanting him to pastor, basically, to go from the beginning to the end with these people. He wants him to be the leader of these disciples. Anytime the disciples are listed, Peter's always first. And it's not that Peter was better than any of them, but that's the role that he had as leader of these disciples. And he was good in that role eventually, but it took him a while to get to there. So verse 17 says, And he saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? So again, you're missing all this if we just read the word love. But Jesus responds now with phileo. So and then it says, Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? So it wasn't so much that he asked the third time that got Peter upset. Now, Jesus is changing his language, and he's saying, Do you even love me with a brotherly love? He's not even going to the sacrificial love now. He's like, Do you even love me this much? You say you do, but you just denied me back there. And so that's why he's starting to weep again, and he knows where Jesus is getting at. And he said to him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus saith unto him, Feed my sheep. So he never answered with agape. All three of his answers were phileo. But Jesus knew he still had a ways to go. And I'm so thankful that God is patient with us. Because how many times does God come to us and he's asking us, Do you agape me? And we respond with phileo several times. But he didn't. He could have just said, Well, he's not going to answer with that, so I'm done. You just go back fishing. That's not what he did. He continued to restore and work with it. I'm so thankful that God is patient with us. And so here in verse 18 it says, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, Follow me. So what he's saying is, Peter, I know you're not ready to make that step right now. He was still living in that guilt. He was still letting that destroy him. What he was saying was, you're gonna agape me eventually. You're gonna get there, and I'm trusting that you're gonna do that. But it's gonna come at a cost. You're gonna die the same way that I did. And he told him right here, you're gonna be crucified. And we later learned that Peter didn't want to be crucified like him. He was crucified upside down. But Jesus knows our end story. I'm so thankful that he doesn't see us just in the moment. He sees the potential of what we can be. And that's what Peter was right here. So he's asking, I told you he wanted to rekindle his flame. Well, now he's asked Peter to reaffirm his faith, reaffirm what he says. And he's allowing Peter to redo his mistake. I mean, he's playing the picture out. Again, he says, follow me, just like he did it the first time. When he first met Peter, he told him, hey, I want you to be fishermen, come follow me. And on the same sea, same setting, and he's getting a redo and get a fresh start. And I'm so thankful that God gives us those fresh starts when we mess up, because we're going to do it. We all mess up every single day. I just admitted to you, and there's several more mistakes I made. But I messed up that night. I know I did. And I pray, and the rest of that week, and then Satan ran with that because he just attacked me the rest of the week, because I always seem to thrive in one-on-one, and this is the hard part. But then it's like Satan took that away from me, and he's like, see, you can't even talk to somebody one-on-one. There was nobody around. That was a layup, and you messed up on it. And so I carried that for a couple of days. And what did I do? I went into isolation. I didn't go to people, hey, I messed up. I need you to pray for me. No, I carried it, and I went deeper into isolation. And then I got into that denying who I am, what I'm even here for, all that Satan ran with. And I did that. But God gave me another opportunity at Walmart Friday, and I had 3 or 4 deep one-on-one conversations about God, and it was just like he restored that to me. I went through all of that torture through that week, and if I would have just came to him in the first place, Lord, I'm sorry for that, help me. I try to carry it on my own and isolate myself, and that's what Peter did. So I'm so thankful that he gives us these second chances. But it says, after this, to follow me. And so when he said this, Jesus wanted him to remember what you're here for. And that's why he said, follow me. He said, remember that one more, when y'all caught all those fish last time? And, remember when I called you to be fishers of men that last time? That's what I want you to do. That's not changed. I still want you to do those things. And so he was just asking him to remember. And I'm so thankful. We see here that already God is starting to restore him. Because in verse 20, it says, then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved. And we know this is John. And I think I've mentioned this before, but when you read through John, look at how many times John refers to himself in this way. Like he always refers to himself, he is the first one to the tomb. He outran Peter. He wanted you to know that. He wanted to know that he was one that Jesus loved. All these things. And then later on the verse it says, which also leaned on his breast at supper and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? He wanted you to know he was the one that was laying on Jesus. That's just how he was. He wanted people to know. But you could look at it in a prideful way, but he just wanted people to know his devotion to the Lord. But what I love this answer right here is about Peter. It says, Peter seeing him saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? So Peter took his eyes off of self for a little bit, finally, and he was starting to get it because he just heard how he was going to die. So him and John were close. That's why they had that little rivalry. He wanted to say, I was faster. John, I was faster than Peter. I was this, I was that. They kind of had that. You get any guys together, we all know that. We're going to be competitive about everything. That's just the way we're made. And so they were best of friends. So he was concerned. He said, if I've got to die that way, how's John going to have to go? And then, he answers, he said, whatever happens to him, that's between me and him. That's not for you to worry about. I want you to worry about yourself. And so, but he was already starting to see what the true thing, what his focus should be on. So this morning, I don't want to keep you all long this morning because I know we've got things to get to. I know Brother Brian's got a funeral to get to, and I'm going to try to be there too. So I want to be mindful of time. But this is the part where if you saw my post yesterday, that I said I was going to do something outside the box. And, and that's why I posted it, because there's no turning back once I do that, because I can't lie about it. So this is what I'm wanting to do. And I hope that y'all will participate in this. But I want to do a visual of why this is so important, why we need to be there for each other. And they didn't just outcast Peter to where he was never used again. And he isolated himself. He was in a bad shape, but God restored him back in. So I want all the men that can to come up here this morning and form a circle like we do on Wednesday nights. Any of the men that could, and if y'all can, and just kind of get in a circle right here. And I just want to do a visual thing that I hope goes over what I'm trying to say this morning. Yeah, just anywhere, right? If you can, the best circle that you can. I just want to So this is very different, and this is way outside my box, and I didn't even know Trevor was here. Trevor knows I'm weird, so that's fine. But this is something that God laid on my heart this week. And if you've ever studied on elephants, there's several animals that do it, when they have the weak ones in the herd, they put in a circle and they protect them from the enemy. You know, the ones that are real small, they're still growing, they can't defend themselves. Or if there's one injured, they'll put them in a circle. So what Peter did is he isolated himself away from that circle and he went away. And it just kept getting worse and worse. The denying happened. I believe he wouldn't have denied Jesus if he would have had those around him. But he isolated himself outside by the fire with people that he shouldn't be around. And it's so important of who we spend our time with and who we confide in and what our circle is. Because that circle will persuade you to do things you're not supposed to be doing. So he's over there with a group of guys he shouldn't be with, and he ends up denying the Lord instead of being around that circle. So what happens, and that's what I did this week. Instead of going into a circle and like I messed up, I need help, I isolated myself, and I did that. So what's important, we got all the hands locked in, and so when they're locked in, you got all these exits right here. You got all these doors that enemies can come in from every angle. But if you're locked in a circle, and if I get here in the middle of the circle, nothing can get to me. You know, because I know no matter what door the enemy comes out, if it's at my back, at my side, whatever, y'all have my back. You have all my angles, and I can be in here and I can heal up what I'm going through. I'm here hurting. I messed up. It may be I may have denied the Lord. I may have something happened, whatever it is, and I'm struggling. And I know if I go outside the circle, I'm going to be devoured by the enemy. But I can come here and find peace and find comfort and all the men here. And there's probably several more that I could, and I'm thankful for that. But what the good thing too is I can't get out of the circle. When it's locked in, I may want out. I'm like, no, I've got this on my own. Because that's the scariest things we can say is, I got this. When we tell the Lord, I don't need you, I don't need these around me, I got this, I can do that. That's what Peter said, I won't deny you, I'll go with you to the end. I got this, God, you can count on me. And he didn't have it, did he? And usually when you say, I got this, that means Satan's got you, is usually what that is. So when I'm in the circle, I know I can, I can sit here and rest and heal up. But what happens if Dennis gets mad at Trevor and he's like, you know what, that Trevor, he's over there trying to act like he's helping him out, and he's not, he's over there and stuff. So then we got all this disconnect and stuff, and then y'all start, maybe going at it or something. Well, then Trevor gets angry, or Dennis gets angry, and say Dennis leaves the circle. He's like, I'm not doing this anymore. Now that leaves an open circle. So now the enemy, just like an offensive line in football, if you don't block every single one, they're going to find a hole to get through. And that's what Satan's going to do. He's going to find a hole to get into the circle. He's going to try to get into this church. He's going to try to get in anywhere he can. And he's going to look for that weak link. Oh, those two, they're focused, because a lot of times we focus on they need to do this, they need to do that. And that may have crossed your mind this morning. You're already thinking, well, that person needs to do this. I'm doing what I need to do. We need to focus on I need to focus on the Lord. I need to read my Bible. I need to pray. I need revival. Because we're not going to see revival if we need revival. They need revival. It's never going to happen if it don't start with us. We have to make that decision. I need this. There's an older preacher that I heard of a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to borrow his. He said, there's too many Christians that are speaking French out there. I'm thinking, like, what is he talking about? He said, they're just we, and nothing is I. Nobody's at fault. And I'm like, that's a good thought, and it kind of birthed this idea. But another thing is, I can't stay in here forever, though. Once I'm healed up and I'm ready to go back at it, then I need to go and join in. So say Aaron is the next one. So then Aaron, he's got a lot going on, and he needs to be in the circle. So then I come in here, and then I connect into the circle, and then now it's our turn to heal him. And, I fill that gap. And then whoever it is, it should be like that over and over again, is not to focus on, Aaron can stay in there the rest, of his days. Like, I'm going to stay right here. But when he heals up, there's somebody else on this outside that's hurting just as bad, because we're taking all the brunt of the enemy around us. We're getting hit from behind. We're taking all this in. And so we're getting hurt. So then it's a time for Aaron comes back out, and then it may be me or somebody else. And that's what we got to do as a church. And because the world is going to beat us up left and right all the time. And so it's up to us to be there for each other, to be that circle, just like men's meeting this morning, other things like that. We've got to be there for each other, because if not, the enemy is going to come in those circles and he's going to destroy the church, destroy our lives, and destroy everything about us. But y'all can obviously, no, that's a little bit out of the box there. But I just wanted that visual there, and it goes for all of y'all women and stuff too. I just did that because that's something that I needed personally. But a lot of times, we treat church like that. We just kind of come in and we go through the motions. We're just here because we have to be, things like that. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to be that circle for each other. You know, this building is supposed to be a safe place for each and every one of us, that when the enemy is attacking us, because we're going to get attacked left and right out there in the world. And we don't need friendly fire to go on top of it. If you're fighting a war and we've got, our military over there, you got enough to fight when you got the enemy. You can't fight amongst yourselves. You're not going to win a war if you're fighting amongst yourselves. And I feel like that's so many times we as Christians are fighting ourselves so much and over the silliest things. I've talked to a lot of pastors over the last couple months, preaching different places, and people leaving over disagreements over carpet color or over what they're doing this and what they're doing there. And they're so busy fighting, and we're just destroying each other from the inside out. Satan's job's easy. I mean, he don't even have to do anything, because we're destroying ourselves left and right. We're just like a football team that just implodes on itself. And, like they don't have to have all the critics get on them. They don't have to have the other teams, even because they've defeated themselves. And I feel like that's the church, not so much this church here, the church as a whole. We've defeated ourselves, and we let Satan just beat us down, because guess what? We've made a mistake this week. Greg, I'm sure you've made a mistake this week. Brian, I know you have. Mark, all of us have. And I just admitted one of my several mistakes that I made. And I pray that the next time I get the opportunity, I'm not going to mess that up again. And I pray I don't. But the fact is, I will mess up again. I'm going to fail at times. But it's so important that we're there for each other in these difficult times. More and more people are isolating themselves in their faith, and they're like, well, I can be a Christian at home. I don't have to go to church. I don't need people. And it's true. You can be a Christian at home, but you're going to be a weak one that's outside that herd, and Satan's going to just destroy you each time. You're going to be like that little baby or that injured one that's out there with no protection, and the enemy's just going to destroy you. And that's why so many Christians are living that way, because we think, I got this, I'm fine. And we're bleeding, we're destroyed. I got this, I don't need no help. And that's where the pride comes in. But we don't need to be prideful and think that we can do it on our own. Every single one of us has had battles this week. But how many of us, and you don't have to raise your hand on this, but how many of us this week has confided in somebody about something we struggle with this week? I mean, just think about that. I mean, how many have seriously reached out to somebody, I need help with this? Probably none of us, or very few. And that's not how it should be, but the bad thing is we're scared to do that, because we're scared of what they're going to do with that information. Because instead of that circle that we had right here, instead of that being a circle to strengthen and to protect, we use it as a gang circle. Well, we're beating up people more and more. Oh man, so-and-so messed up this week. He needs to be out of our circle and out of this. He's our weak link. He's messing us up. And that's the mentality that we get. And we beat each other down, that we're not there to help. And that's not what we need to do. So I know it's a little unorthodox, a little weird this morning, but I just want that visual in your minds that we need that together to be that circle. And that goes for everyone, and not just men, women, children, all of us need to be that circle for each other and help each other out, not to beat each other down. That's what we need to be. But this morning, Brother Martin, if you can, go ahead and get us a song ready. But I want to end on this thought that, just like the song sung this morning, I surrender. Where is the I within you this morning? Are you still stuck in pride? Are you in isolation? Are you in denial? Where are you this morning? And if you're in those places, you need to come in faith down here this morning. And wherever you stand, God's right here. The circle, no one's going to beat you down here when you come down here. We're here to uplift one another, and we're here for you. So come down this morning. If the Lord's speaking with you this morning, something that you're struggling with, maybe it's not so much you're struggling with, but maybe you're just not being in the link in the circle you need to be. Maybe you're thinking, well, they need to do this. We need to be better as a church, but it's not I. Where are you this morning with I? Is the I within you? And if we don't get to that point, we'll never see revival within us or within this church. But go ahead, Brother Mark.
Hello, friends. My name is Brian Harris. I'm pastor of Mountain View Baptist Church, and we are so thankful that you tuned in to watch our service today. Whether you were watching on Facebook or whether you were watching on YouTube or our website, we are so thankful that you came to worship with us today, to listen to the message that the Lord provided, and we hope that He spoke to your heart today. We also want to make sure that we're able to minister to you, whether you're here in person or whether you're at home or wherever you may be watching today. We want to be able to minister to you and to your needs. So if there is a prayer request, if there is a need that you have, you're welcome to contact us. You can contact us through our Facebook Messenger, or you can contact us through our website, and there'll be a link to those on this video. Also, if the Lord dealt with your heart today, and maybe you've got questions about becoming a Christian, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, then we would love for you to contact us. We would love to pray with you. We would love to lead you through some scripture that might help you and benefit you to understand just exactly what Jesus Christ done for you. And I want to tell you what He done for me. I was 7 years old. He saved my soul, and I have never been the same since. And there is joy in my heart that was not there before, and I know that joy is never going to end. And I would love for you to have that same personal relationship with Him. So join us next week. Join us during our Facebook Lives. Join us in person. But if we can be a help to you, then please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you.